Reactive training systems.
This is a Titans of Powerlifting episode. That's TOP for short. My partner for these is Dom Siriani. He's an experienced competitor, a gym owner, and a classic world champion. In each of these, Dom and I will be talking to the Titans, the ones who've paved the way for powerlifting to be what it is today. There's a lot of wisdom to be gained from knowing the roots of our sport, and these are the people who can teach us. So in this episode of TOP, we're talking to Tony Harris. Tony's been competing in powerlifting since the early 90s, and he's done a ton of different competitions, seen a lot of different things, competed at the highest levels, done single ply and raw. And then I think probably the most notable thing, at least to me, about Tony's career is that now, in his middle 50s, he's the strongest he's ever been. He's lifting more weight now than he has at any point in his life. And even to the point where at 52 years old, he set the open world record in the squat. He set his personal best bench at 52 years old. He says personal best deadlift at 54 years old. So he's a guy who's really continuing to bring in his best, even as the years continue on. And I think there's a lot that even contemporary lifters can learn from Tony. In particular, we talk a little bit in this interview about the way that Tony carries himself at competitions. And I like to joke with him about stuff like that. But if you've ever met Tony at a competition, then I think his mannerism, like the way that he approaches the competition, at least outwardly, man, that's such a good way, a good low stress way to approach a competition. And even though he must be feeling, the pressure of competing on a national stage or competing on a world stage, even after having done it for so long, there's still going to be pressure there. But you can either feed into it and make it worse, or you can not and cope with it in a effective way that preserves your performance. And I think Tony's really got a good way of carrying himself at competitions. But we have some fun in this interview, and I think there's a lot here that you'll enjoy. In particular, the second half of the interview. Well, the whole thing really, but in particular the second half is there's some gems in there. There's some things that I think can make you a better lifter, better coach, good pieces of wisdom, and as always with these types of podcasts, some things that help you gain a better understanding of how powerlifting is here today and the way that it's here today. So anyway, without any further delay, I'll bring you this conversation that Dom and I had with Tony Harris.
Hey Tony, how you doing?
It's sunny and warm and beautiful there.
Oh, nice. A little overcast today, but it's still a beautiful day. It's about 75 degrees, so you can't complain with that.
Yeah.
No, sir. Definitely not. Well, so Tony, appreciate you joining us for this. You were on the list of folks we wanted to talk to when Mike and I were kind of talking about sort of legends in the game who are maybe still at it and been sort of achieving at a high level for decades now. So really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So we were kind of going back through the results that we could find as far as your competition history. And I can find results back as far as 93 or so. But I'm sure that you started before then. And I was kind of interested in that story, kind of how did you get into this and how did you get into competing?
Well, it all came about, I actually used to train anyway. So I was training heavy pretty much through high school for football and all of that. But once I got stationed in Hawaii, it was actually when the powerlifting started. So that'll be like 1988. Just met a bunch of guys in the gym. We started training together, and it kind of twisted my arm into competing. At one point, I was just never really about that whole competing thing. And I was just like, no, I'm just coming to train. I'll train heavy with you guys and whatnot. But then once I did that first meet, I got that bug. So here I am, still doing
it. Yeah.
So if you look back, what was your first meter? Do you remember that, or do you remember what it was, or
my first meet I did was a bench and deadlift meet. I was at 198. I think I weighed in like 195 pounds. I benched, I think it was 405 bench and a 650 deadlift in my first contest.
Wow. Yeah, so you come a long way. I mean, might help for the listeners, may or may not know where your numbers are at now, but if you kind of give us sort of best lifts over time or sort of where you're at now, that I think that'd be cool for people to hear that.
Okay, well, my best lift to date, well, I haven't done equip lifting since 2014, so my last equip meet was the North Americans in the Virgin Islands. Wasn't a great meet. I think I went like 4 for 9, but I think my best overall at 264, I squatted 909, I benched 518, and I pulled 788, I believe it was.
Big squatter. Yeah. And for raw, what do you think? What have you done?
For raw, my best numbers have been 834 squat, 435 bench, and a 755 deadlift today.
Gotcha.
So the
thank you.
The raw squat in particular was an open world record when you did it, and so I was looking back through your contest results and whatnot, and on the raw side, all your best lifts have been done recently. Your best squat and bench came when you were 52. Best deadlift was, I think, at the last competition you were 54, right?
Yeah, 53 actually. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the secret? How do you lift at your best in your 50s? I mean, open world record at age 52 is I mean, try wrapping your head around that for somebody like us who haven't done anything like that,
I think the thing for me is I train year round, not necessarily just for contest or anything. It's like at any given point after a contest, I like to sit back and look at videos and, try and critique all the things that went right, even all the things that went well, and I mean, all the things that went wrong. So when you find out, looking at all that, you try and see where you can make things better, what you can change to try and move it more forward to what improve on what you've done. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
All right. So
over time, has your training style evolved at all? Like how you set up your training week to week, day to day? How do you think about that? And kind of curious to hear how that's changed over time, maybe how from the beginning to now.
In the beginning, it was I was training 4 or 5 days a week, for those early years. So I think once I hit those master years, I backed my training back down to 3 days a week, and I would do all 3 power lifts each day in the gym. All at different percentages. Nothing ever really heavy until I got up to decide when I was going to do a meet. So probably about 12 to 15 weeks out, I did a lot of heavy training coming up. So that last 5 weeks or 6 weeks or so, I'm not beating my body up, trying to see where I'm going to be at, how much I need to do or whatever. I just go in there and I train smart, focus everything around what my opener is going to be, and then go from there.
So you mentioned starting at 90 kilos, starting your competition career at 198, and now competing at 264. Was that just, hey, you lift weights for a long time, you add some muscle, gain some weight, move up some weight classes, or was that more intentional?
Actually, I think it was just kind of one of those natural things that, as your weight starts to progress, you start to get stronger, your body start to put on more muscle mass, and you generally move up. So that was more it for me from 198 to 220. But from 220 to 242, I sustained a pretty serious back injury, herniated L4, L5, S1, to the point where I could barely walk. And the chiropractor suggested that if I was going to keep competing, not to lose weight again. So he recommended that. I stayed with him. We worked together. We've been together now about 20 years. So he's a man that knows what he's doing and kept me going all this time. So I just listened to him, and here I am today.
So what was that? How long did it take you to get back from that? Maybe you said and it got cut off in the thing here, but could you speak to that a little bit more? Like what was that? How did you get hurt? What was the injury? And then what was kind of that recovery process?
Okay, so initially this happened in January of 2000. I'm actually stick to back. July of 2000. I was at the Open Nationals. I was pulling my second deadlift, which was like 771, 777. And just as I got the weight clear of the floor, I heard a little click and the bar slowed down. And I just told myself, well, you're going to finish this one if you don't finish any other one. So long story short, I locked it up and got a good call on it, put the weight down, and as I walked off, I can feel something wasn't right. So when they brought up me from a third attempt, I just pulled against the bar, and I was like, oh, no, it's not going to happen. So I went back, took off a few weeks from training, and all of a sudden the body started to feel better. So I was like, well, maybe I just strained my back, I didn't bother going and getting a professional opinion on it at that time. So training for Worlds, I did my last pull about 3-4 weeks out from Worlds. I pulled 749. Right when I got to the top, I felt that little click again. So, my training partner was like, you don't look good. What's wrong? I'm like, something ain't right, but I think it's okay. I have on a tight suit, so I think I'll be fine. Get to Japan, go and do my opening squat. Everything was perfect. Squatted my second squat at 782 at 220, and it was super fast. And after I got the rack signal and got the weights off my back, my body just started to tensing up and spasming in the lower back. And I had Doc Bernie there with me. He was massaging me and working on me and stuff, and we just couldn't figure out what it was at the time. So my intent was actually going out to squat 815 on the third. So I told him, no, we're going to just drop it down to 800. Don't go out there and put it up there. So at that point, I went out, picked the weight, unracked it. Once they gave me the rack signal, my body just started shaking, weight shaking, and I couldn't even move. So I racked the weights back, and when I walked off the platform, I couldn't even stand up straight. So at that point, we knew something was going on, but we didn't know how serious it was. So Doc Bernie continued to work on me through the bench. So I made it through the benching flat on my back. So I think I ended up benching like a 479 or something. And then I came out to do the deadlift. Started the deadlift. My last warm-up was at 606. And it moves super, super slow. So at that point, we knew something was definitely going on. At that point, they wanted me to stop, and I said, I need one pull, and I said, I can break into the top 3. I said, the only guy that's really leading me now would be the Russian guy. And I said, he's the only guy at that point in time at 220, the only guy that possibly would outpull me. So we left my opener in at 738. I went out for the opening attempt. The bar came up probably about 3 inches off the floor. And everybody turned to my wife and asked, what's wrong with him? That's not like him. He's supposed to have this, And she was like, I don't know. So she came back in the back from a second and hey, babe, what's up? I'm like, something's happened. I don't know what it is. So let's just get through it. So I took my second attempt and I tried to do sumo. I had never pulled sumo in a meet, but I was training it, but never pulled it. So I pulled against the bar flexed, never came off the floor. And I was like, all right, this ain't working. So it was like, come on, just stop. I was like, no, I get this. I was like, looking at the results now, if I make this pull, I said, I'll break into second place. There's no way that I can't pull this weight. I've pulled it 1,000,000 times, So I reset, came back out on the third attempt, and I ripped the weight up off the floor, went back conventional, ripped it off the floor. The bar came up to my knees super fast and just went to a screeching halt. And my back locked up at that point. So I dropped the weights, walked off, bent over the other way, and that was pretty much how I was at that point. So I flew back from Japan to Hawaii straight to the hospital to find out, that's I heard the disc in my back. So it took me, that was November. I didn't squat again until May of 2001 after seeing my chiropractor. So that was about 6 months. Yeah, roughly about 6 months or so. No training, no nothing, just going to therapy 3 times a week, getting worked on. And when I did do my first squat, it was pretty bad because everything was shifting to the right side because everything was hurt on the left side. So I ended up doing nationals that year. So I went up from 220 to 242, and I won nationals that year. And with a slow, I think it was like a slow 744 squat that it took me probably a minute to stand up with. So I think Alex Gallant, he has a good story on that one. He was the head ref for that one because he got down on the floor. The spotters were about ready to grab me, and he kept telling them, "Don't touch him, don't touch him. He's moving. Don't." So yeah, it was quite interesting.
Yeah. So that's a.
So you ended up going back to IPF Worlds. How'd you do after that healing?
That was in 2001. I think I went to in Finland that year. I think I came in 5th place the first year back. So it wasn't a bad showing. It was slow. I mean, I was able to reach the numbers that I previously done at 220. So I said it took me about a year to get back to where I was lifting wise. Yeah.
When you hurt yourself that bad, did you ever consider giving it up, or what was your thought process there?
The thought process was not to give it up, especially after I found a chiropractor. He told me he could fix me, and at that point, I just kind of dumped everything in his hands and said, okay, fix me, and then we'll go. So he had never really worked with an athlete, and we were the kind of a first for each other. So he learned a lot from working on me, and I learned a lot through him, just, how to take care of myself.
Gotcha. So you were doing, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were doing some of the IPF and USPF back before sort of the USAPL came into existence, or before the ADFPA took over that alliance with the IPF. Is that right? Like you were lifting in the USPF days a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct. a lot of times back before that, you had a lot of dual sanction meets, especially at the state level. So you had USPF, APF meets combined, and did a lot of AAU, those things during that time. But I was there for the whole transitioning from USPF, ADFPA to the USAPL. So that all took place in Czech Republic in '97 when the USPF was voted out and USAPL came to existence. So that first year, you could feel a lot of the tension in the air at nationals, because, you had half of the guys that came over were already competed at the IPF and the USPF, and then you had the ADFPA guys who already had their national champions, So it was a nice merger, but, there was definitely a lot of tension in the air that first year.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that time period and sort of why that transition happened, or at least what your experience with it was and how it all came to be?
I can't say why it really happened. I don't really know why the USPF was voted out, but at that time, when the USAPL, ADFPA came in, it was a big transitioning point. So again, you had a lot of people who, like for me, with the USPF at the time, I enjoyed lifting over there. Everybody used to always say that, no drug testing going on and this and that. And there was drug testing going on. I can attest to that even back then. There were times like I did the 95 ADFPA Nationals. I came in and first thing off, they got a list of people who are going to drug test, and my name's at the top of the list. Oh, you being drug tested? I'm like, that's fine. You drug test me anytime you want. But at that meet, a lot of the winners was not drug testing, and that's what was kind of one of the things where all the winners are going to be drug tested, but a lot of them wasn't, So, some of the lifters had their suspicion about who is and who isn't using on both sides, and just one of those things that went on, and, they still have that to this day. So, I'm just one of those guys. It's like, if you're using, fine, that's your thing. But once you get caught, you get caught. Don't sit there and try to deny the fact that, you weren't taking something or you took a supplement or whatever the case is, So, yeah.
Do you have a sense that nowadays more people are getting away with it, or less people, or you think they're doing about the same job in terms of sort of top-ranked lifters in the world?
I mean, there's going to be some that's going to get away with it, but I mean, for me to say who is and who isn't using, I really don't know. I mean, I try to stick to the point that they said we're drug-free or drug-tested, then that's what it is. And until you get caught, then I guess you're clean as the next guy,
Feel like you give them the benefit of the doubt or whatever.
Exactly. I mean,
just worry about yourself.
That's it. You can only take care of yourself and worry about what I do. I can't worry about what they're doing. Hey, their numbers are shooting up. Hey, maybe they're training the way they should train. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily that because your numbers are going up, you're on something. It's just, you start to get smart about how your training is. Because for me personally, I get a lot of that. It's like, how does a 50-plus-year-old guy keeps improving? Well, this 50-plus-year-old guy spends that time in the gym, and I take the time to look back and see what I need to do to get better, So
Yeah,
you have to make those sacrifices.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense to me. You gotta, that's been a thing that has kind of popped up in a couple of these that we've done is just worry about the things that you can control. Worry about the things that are in your little sphere of influence, so that would make sense to focus on that. It's going to let you be the best competitor that you can be, and if you keep doing that, just worry about being the best powerlifter you can be, then that has the long-term payoff maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to, one thing that I noticed, you had some breaks in your competition history, and we talked about one of those already as far as the back injury and, some other things. I guess one thing I was curious about is, what is it like for you to come back from one of those breaks? Is it hard to get back in the gym and kind of rebuild the habit? Is it like, are you thinking about anything in particular? Do you kind of think forward to getting back on the platform, or it's just like, hey, lifting weights is what I do,
It's just one of those things that I think it just embedded in me just to train. So by virtue of that, I just go back to the gym. I don't have really no expectations in the beginning. And as the weight starts to move and start to feel better, and start to get up there some, then it's like, okay, now I think I should look into probably going back and compete now. I think the body's ready. I think I'm ready. The mental side of it is, you always have to keep that edge when you're going in there. So whether you completely ready or not, if you're mentally sharp about it, then, your body kind of surprise you with a lot of things that happen. And, people go like, hey, where does that come from? It's like, I don't know. I didn't think I had it in me. But, on that mental side of it, you just stay positive about the whole situation. So.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your mental approach to a meet, because I've had the good fortune to kind of talk to you before some meets, and you always have something interesting to say. So kind of wondering what you're thinking about when you're going into a big meet, and kind of how you approach the situation.
Well, for me, it's just that one track mind going in there is like, okay, you're going in there for a reason. Your reason is, and you have this preconceived notion that these are numbers you want to do. So I push myself into that point. But at the same time, I know when realization hit, if I'm not feeling right or something's not on, then I know how to say, okay, step back. This is what we're going to do, and not what you think you were going to do, So you have to kind of be real with yourself, first off, because if you're just going in there based on this is what I know I can do, then that don't always fly through, because I'm, for one, I don't like to leave none of my lifts and lifting fate to the judges. It's like, technically, I want to go in there and be sound. When they say hit the depth, I want to be able to make sure it's in depth. When they pause, I want a definite pause and lock. You know what I mean? So I don't want nothing to be questioned where, did I get it? Yeah, nope. Oh, you got 2 red lights or 3 red lights,
So, what's your training situation like? You have regular training partners now, people that you are kind of mentoring along, or anything like that?
Yeah, I have Al Fritz and Austin Keanu. They have been my training partners now for probably close to 20 years. And they are both master lifters. Al just became an M2 last year. He won actually Master Worlds at 105 in Canada last year. These guys have been with me forever and a day. We started off equipped together, training, and now that we're in this raw mode, they don't want to go back raw, but I'm actually considering going back. I'm actually considering going back equipped, and they don't want to go back that way. So, yeah.
Why'd you end up making the switch in the first place to raw from equipped, Tony?
This was funny that I was actually on the internet one day, just listening to a lot of the comments about, these equipped guys are not strong, they be cheating, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, what? And, in my mind, it's like, well, as an equipped lifter, I never really pushed my raw, it's that I hit a certain point, I'm putting on a suit and that's it. So at that point, I was like, hey, this is perfect time to find out what the raw thing is all about, So I did the first meet, kind of liked it, the fact that I don't have to go in there and spend a lot of time in a squat and getting in a squat suit, rapping, making sure I got people that help me and whatnot. So, you know, even if my training partners are not around, a lot of the raw stuff I did on my own, you know. So it just happened to work out time-wise, and here I am still at it.
See, I thought that was interesting because you weren't, you know what I mean? This is, you kind of just said that too, but you weren't like the earliest adopter for raw lifting, you know, and but then you cross over and you're really freaking good at it, you know. I mean, so that was interesting to me as well. So what's got you thinking about going back on the equip side?
I just want to see really where my squad is equipped now. I mean, you know, when you get your raw strength up, you know that really plays big when you're in equipment. So just to see what I would be able to squat would be awesome. You know, I have some numbers in my head that, you know, I've been kind of tossing around, and I was like, you know, that's really doable. So, you know, just a matter of getting back in there and spending some time in it.
So,
what's the number?
I was going to say that.
What are you thinking, buddy?
Well, realistically, you know, I told myself 950, 960 is definitely not out of the question. But, you know, if I can get in there and take the time and train the way I need to train, you know, hey, probably 1,000 pounds wouldn't be out of the question either. So
that'd be badass, man.
That's a big number.
I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, I think if anybody's going to look at the numbers that you were lifting and what you did equipped, and then the numbers that you're lifting raw now, I mean, that's where my mind would go, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that world record squat at the Arnold and the Grand Prix, I think it was. Was that right, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was at the Grand Prix.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching that from the audience, and I was like, that blew me away. I mean, it's a big number, and, you know, no offense to anyone, but you're in your 50s hitting that number. And I was doing the sort of junior meet the day before, and you were in the warm-up room, and I was asking you, normally for anyone that never talked to Tony, usually plays it cool before a meet. And I'm sure Mike can attest to this, but he asked Tony how he's doing. Oh, I don't know. My knees and my back and this and everything else, you know?
Man, this is like a running joke with me and Tony right now, because every meet that I go to, Tony's at the meet and I'll see him. Man, one year it was at the Raw Nationals. It was in Atlanta. Man, Tony walked in. He's got a limp and everything, and I'm like, damn, man, is he okay? Tony, I don't know how it's going, man. We'll see. We'll just get lifted. I'm thinking, damn, Tony's not looking in great shape. And then he blows everybody else away. And you're watching these lifts, and you're like, man, oh, I don't know how it's going to go. I just squat a world record. That's all right.
Well, that's the only time that Tony ever told me anything different was the day before that. He said, I have a big number in mind. And every other time I've ever talked to him before a meet, he's always giving me the old runaround, like, I'm not sure, I'm getting older, my back, my knees, I don't know, you know. But he did tell me in that warm-up room, he says, I got a big number in mind. And then sure enough, the next day he went out there and just annihilated it. You know
Tony, what I want to know is how old do I got to be to start playing that game? When can I show up to meets and just start telling everybody, oh, I don't know.
I mean, it's just one of those things, man. It's like, you know, people expect, I guess, some cockiness or whatever, but I'm like, you know, that's not me. This is, you know, kind of what you see is what you get, you know? And, you know, I never go in there with the expectation that I'm going to beat somebody or do any of that, you know? I just wait till it comes down to that last, after the opening deadlifts, I said that's when a strategy for me really starts, because I can't control anything outside what any other lifter is going to do, you know? So if my squats on and my bench on, and then after that, an opening deadlift, and I can kind of see where we at. Okay, now let's kind of strategize some because, even like for a person like, Dennis and Matt, these guys with these huge squats, it's like, whew, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. It's like, for me, I just tell myself, I just want to stay close. So if I can hit my lifts and be close and put myself in a position in the end and make a difference in how I'm going to place, and I said, and that's what I'm going to do. But those first 6 lifts, the 3 benches, 3 squats, you don't have any control over, well, I'm going to change this to see if no, it's not going to happen.
No, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think, I'm giving you a hard time about it, but I honestly think it's a great attitude to carry into a meet. It helps keep you focused on doing your thing, making your lifts. And like you said, you can't do anything about anything else anyway. So why get all worked up about it? Why burn all the nervous energy, getting amped up 3 days before the meet, just play it cool, relax,
There you go.
Yeah, man.
That's my thing, have fun, joke with people, at Worlds, when I first did my first Worlds, I used to tell the guys, hey, good luck, let's have a good meet, and people look at me like, well, is he trying to set me up for something? Or, it's like, no, I'm being honest. I mean, I want you to go out there and do your best and have fun because that's what I'm going to do. However the chips fall and lay, then that's what it's going to be. I have no control over anything outside of what I do. That's it.
Yeah, I think that Nationals, that 2016 in Atlanta, that's the one you won the whole thing in the open class. Is that right, Tony and Mike? I think that's my memory of that. Yeah. And I do remember you saying, you're walking around with a limp and saying you're not sure how you're going to do, and then won everything.
It's one of those things, man. It's like, when the body hurts. I mean, like for doing this stuff all these years and, with the military stuff on top of that, my job is not a hard job, but I find myself in a lot of, I guess you can say, positions where that are uncomfortable to work in. So your body just gets up and you just feel like crap afterwards, It's like, man, that just hurts being down in that position for that long. So, once you start to try and adjust and get the kinks worked out, it's different. And being on a vessel, pulling into port, I got to go train. So now you're trying to walk sideways, you still got your sea legs walking left or right, and you're trying to get in the gym and get your training in. People like, how do you do that on a day-to-day? It's like, you make it happen, it ain't gonna happen if I don't make it happen. So that's what I do. I just go in there and just kind of see how the day is gonna go. If it goes good, then I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna push it. And if it's going bad, then I'll cut it off right there, back down, do a little work, and then call it a day. So.
What do you do in the Navy?
Got to get it in, I guess.
I don't think I ever talked to you about that.
I'm actually in the Army. I'm a warrant officer in the Army. So I'm a chief engineer on Army vessel, the Robert T. Kuroda. It's a transport boat. So I'm a chief engineer. So by virtue of that, I'm in charge of pretty much all the maintenance on that vessel, from the engine, the AC, pretty much everything on there. So I don't have I guess you can say, set work schedule. My schedule is based on how things happen. So I have 3 shifts. They work 4 on, 8 off, around the clock, as long as that vessel is moving. But the minute something happens, I have a squawk box in my room that'll notify me. They'll call me up, and then I'll just immediately go down. So there'll be some days I'll work all day. There'll be some days I don't work at all, other than the fact to go down there and check on them and make sure that they're okay, So it just depends, but there's some long hours, long days, especially when you're sailing. So there won't be no time off a lot of times. And being on the boat, we don't have a lot of equipment to train with. I think we got dumbbells up to 75 pounds. And we got about 500 pounds worth of weight on there. So, I mean, I'm able to keep myself in shape, but not to the extent to say, hey, I'm gonna get off a boat and get ready and go do a contest. No.
So what's it like training while you're underway? Is that I've heard from some people that can be a bit of an experience in stability.
Yeah, you're definitely learning how to balance. That's for sure. It is, you know, being that as a flat bottom boat, so we get a lot of rocking. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, you learn to get your balance in. And it's not all about trying to go super heavy there either, because any minute you can hit a rogue wave or anything, and then all of a sudden you're on the floor, you're dumping the weights, you know. So where we train at, we have equipment down there. So I have to tell the guys, you know, you can't just go and dump weights, because you go up here and hit something and short out something, and that's more work for me. So it's basically just staying within what you can handle, you know, for those 6 to 8 reps and be comfortable with it. It's not about going heavy at all.
Have you ever had a situation like that where you were down there training and then something, you know, unexpected wave or something like that, and you kind of find yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in?
Yes, I've been at that point where, you know, you're doing goblet squats and doing lunges on the vessel, you know. So
lunges, I can imagine.
On the good days, and you just got to drop the weight. So when you hit that wave and it just throws you off balance, so it's either let it go or you go into the floor, to the deck. So you just kind of let them go. But again, it's all about being safe. And if the water's too rough, and then I'll have the place locked down where nobody could go train at all. So at that point, you can stay in your room and, you know, do push-ups, sit-ups. I always take rubber bands with me and stuff, so I can do whatever type of training I want in there. So I can do pretty much anything.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Maybe I ought to take some notes, because I've been finding it more and more difficult to train on the road and whatnot. So it sounds like you got that part of it down, at least.
Oh, yeah, that's the best part. I mean, you get you couple of sets of bands, different sizes, and you can take them with you, and you can pretty much do everything you want to do. Like in my room, I just anchor them down to my bunk. I can set it up to where I can do just banded squats. So depending on how many bands I got to determine how heavy I want to go. At that point, same thing with the bench and, you know, pulling against the bands, the deadlift, and work my back and hamstring and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Hey, Tony, you live in Hawaii, which people may or may not know, but can you talk about, you know, a lot of the major meets, you know, most of the nationals and everything else is quite a trip in terms of travel, and I don't think you very often have the luxury of driving to a meet.
I wish.
Yeah. So how do you approach that, sort of like those long flights and the travel and everything like that? Is there anything you do special to get ready for that, or how do you attack those meets?
Well, because I've been doing it for so long, I think in the early years it was a problem, because I really didn't know how to travel and get to a meet, you know, 2 or 3 days ahead, and know how to prepare and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and lift and give it my best. Early on, it kind of suffered, but then as I did it more, it got better. You talk to people who've traveled a lot, you know, the Eddie Cohens and Steve Gargans, those guys, and, you know, they give you little helpful hints and stuff about how to do things, and then it's like, oh, okay. So, you know, pre 9/11, I mean, when you were able to take water and do all that type of stuff, you know, a lot of stuff I did on my own. I just made sure I had plenty of water I would take with me during flight. Definitely stay hydrated, because a lot of people get on the flight, sit there for 4 or 5 hours and don't move. You know, I'm one of those guys who, my flights are all long, so I get up and I walk around most of the time that we're flying. So to keep that blood moving and staying hydrated. So the only time I'm actually sitting down is if I'm in that chair asleep. So, and then usually when I hit ground to where I'm at, I stay awake. If I'm there daytime early, I try and stay awake until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I start to wind down. Okay, it's time to go eat, grab a shower. So that way when I do go to sleep, I'll sleep throughout the night. Don't have to worry about waking up, uninterrupted sleep. So that way I get on the schedule on the place I'm in and not worried about, well, it's 10 hours behind in Hawaii and this, I normally be sleeping now versus being up at this time. So a lot of it is just making adjustments.
So get there a little bit early, get on the new schedule as soon as possible, taking care of yourself during the flight so that you're hydrated and rested. Is that kind of the big things?
Those are the big things right there. I mean, the hydration part is definitely key because that recirculated air, it just doesn't do it,
Yeah. Seems to affect everybody a little bit differently too. I've heard some weird stories from people as far as making weight and flying and stuff. That'd be another thing that getting there a couple days early would really help with, if it's possible. If the flight messed with your weight, it'd give you some time to fix it.
Well, exactly, because usually I'll land and I'm probably, 3 to 5 pounds heavier than I would normally be. But after being on the ground a day or two, then my weight just kind of normalizes back to where it was. I mean, I don't change my eating. I still eat the way I was. And they was like, but you got to drop weight. It's like, I know where I'm at. So those are some of the things you learn because the first 5 years as a 9'8", I lost weight. 5 years as a 220, I lost weight. And then by the time I got to 242, I think that was the only weight class initially going into that I was able to just stay comfortable and didn't have to lose weight until after a couple of years. And then I started to drop weight, but it was the smallest drop of all the weight classes. So now you move it up with the weight class change in 2011 to this 120. So I was sitting right there in the middle. So it was like, no way I'm thinking about trying to make that drop back down. It's too big of a drop.
So what do you walk around at now?
Normally I'm sitting around between 255 and 260.
Right on, man.
So you're good. You're good there anytime. Yeah.
Yep, I'm good. But then, coming into the training, I try and put on weight. So I try and push my weight up to where I think the heaviest I've been is about 270. But knowing that I can't keep that weight on my body, it's fine because I'll get that weight up and then I can see some of the leverages change, especially on from a bench. It gives me a little better stability in my bench where it doesn't do anything for my deadlift, but, I'll take whatever it is because, by far bench is probably my weakest lift anyway. So.
Yeah, I think you told me once that you just thought the bench was a warm-up for your deadlift.
I used to think that a lot now, but, seeing that, you got a lot of lighter weight class guys are benching what I'm benching, and it's like telling myself, man, you got to get on the ball. I mean, long arms or not, there's no excuse, So.
Yeah, you and Matt. And his thing, it's pulling you up a little bit.
Yeah,
So if you were going to give advice,
go ahead.
Give advice to someone just getting into lifting now, kind of looking back at this multi-decade career that you're still achieving high results. Yeah. Well, what kind of words of wisdom would you give to somebody?
I'll tell them first thing is, you got to find somebody who knows what they're doing. Get with somebody, get you a coach, get you a trainer partner. Somebody knows how to train you. Because when I started training, the guys that were helping me, they knew how to train themselves, but they didn't know how to train me. Things that they were doing, it was like, okay, I could do this, but I've never done that. And they didn't really have the instruction to give me to say, let's put you in a better position with how your body type is because, you're built different, things like that. So knowing somebody, having somebody that knows all that is a plus, Yeah, you eventually learn it on your own, but you don't want to go through having to get hurt, different injuries and stuff to get there. If somebody can sit there and show you. So like with my training partners, like I don't think none of them actually have ever been hurt. So by virtue of that, I tell them, I want to be able to teach y'all so y'all learn from my mistakes and not do the things that I did. So that just lost time in the gym, lost time wherever you want to put it at, But if you can stay healthy and get through everything, that's great. But if you're going to not listen and just go out here and be on a whim and get yourself hurt, then you're asking those same questions from different people like, well, what did you do to recover? How did you recover? What, So take the advice early on and follow it,
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything you attribute sort of your longevity in the sport to? Was there a reason that anything you could point to that says, man, this is why I'm still doing it at such a high level?
I think is training smart and not trying to train heavy all the time. I see a lot of people training, on Instagram and all these social media places where they hitting these big numbers, 90% for triples, or they doing a 5-rep max of some weight they've never done, and another PR max, and it's like, man, I ain't never did any of that crap in the gym. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. But at the same time, you start to see that those same people when they go to the meets, well, you see those numbers fall off because whoever's training
you gotta
them
leave something for the platform.
Don't know how to cycle them off and whatnot. So I think that's my biggest thing that's kept me around is, I like the heavyweight, but I don't have to be under that constant heavyweight to try and push myself to a new max or new PR,
So most of your best lifts have been in the platform then, I guess you'd say?
Exactly. Actually, till to date, not counting any of the equip lifting, if, my squat, I haven't missed a squat and a raw meet since I've been competing.
Wow.
So,
that's something.
Yeah, I wish I could say that for the bench and the deadlift. But like I tell everybody, I focus on all three lifts, but there's I give a little extra emphasis to my squat because it is the pace setter for me. So knowing that, that's what I go in there and that's how I train it.
Did you have anybody, you kind of touched on this earlier as far as you were talking about training partners and whatnot, but did you have anybody as you were coming up in the sport that you would say was kind of a mentor to you?
I did a lot of talking with, like I said, with Steve Goggins. I did a lot of talking with Eddie Cohen over the years. And there's a few other people out there that I chatted with here and there. But, it's like a lot of it I did just via reading. So, like Louis Simmons, when they were at their game back in the mid-90s where they were really popular, I got all their video series and I hit a lot of their stuff and like start plugging it into like, okay, you do these different cycles, what works for me, what don't work. Okay, I could put this in, I'll take this out. And then the 2 times that you and I got together and, you helped me and program for me and stuff. So at the same time, it's like, okay, this works great. Now, what can I do from this program that I can attach to this versus this and this and this? And then the same thing with the Shako. So like over the years, as all that is evolved, I just kind of took extracts from everybody, put it together and said, okay, this works for me. I know it works because I've done it and I see my numbers are moving. So same thing with my training partners, everybody like, oh, you guys be training, y'all train hard. But I said, but you look at their numbers, it's like, over the years, they've had, everybody has their ups and downs, but I said, but if you look at it from a gaining standpoint, but their numbers are constantly on the rise. My training partner, Austin, he'll be 58 years old this year. He squatted 661 at World Nationals last year, and everybody's like, wow, like, what are you doing with these guys, And I'm like, they're training. So we sit there and we try and, you're going through these hip training programs and you look and you say, okay, let's play with them. So our off season is just that, trying to figure out what works better than what we already have.
So off season, how many times a year are you guys competing?
Generally, I'll do 2 times a year. On occasion, I have done 3.
Yeah, that makes for a nice off season then. That's something that I'm starting to think is more important than I thought it was when I was a younger lifter, And maybe it's not as important for a younger lifter, Maybe you can get away with it, and maybe the meet experience is worth something, But at a certain point, you start going, man, it sure would be nice to have a big block of uninterrupted time to just train and make something happen,
Yeah. I mean, we all start, like when I started when I was young, I did a lot of that. Okay, let's go from meet to meet to meet, 4 meets, 5 meets, 6 meets a year. And then once you hit that wall, and I hit that wall, and then it's like, hey, man, like, lifts are not going anywhere. Like, everything is stuck. Like, but then, I talked to Gut Rethwich, during that time, he goes, suppose you're not training. What do you mean? I'm training all the time, man. Like, it's like, no, you're not training. He said, you're trying to get ready for a contest. You need to take some time, stay away from the meets, and you need to train. And they start to evaluate the things you do. And I was like, oh, okay. So, till that day, that still sticks with me. So for me, like I said, 2 to 3 meets a year, that's fine, because I can have those uninterrupted blocks where I want to do whatever I want to do in training, I can do it. And there's nothing down the road that I'm worried about that's going to, interfere with it. And then they say, okay, now that block is over, now let's get back to something more realistic. Now let's start getting ready for this contest. So, and then you start to see like, oh yeah, it did pay off, because now I'm better here versus what I was before that. So, yeah.
It reminds me.
So what do you have coming up? Oh, sorry, Mike.
I was just going to say that reminds me of what Bryce Lewis has been up to. He was saying that he kind of was feeling like he was on the competition treadmill a little bit and wanted to step back from that and take some time to make some real improvements to his lifting. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm starting to learn something here.
Well, you got a lot to put out there too. So, I mean, that's why I tell people, it's like, as long as I've been doing this, and, I'm still learning stuff from people that, and they're like, what? But I was like, you never know everything you need to know. I mean, there's always something coming up that somebody's tried or done and it's worked, and you don't know why it worked, but you know for a fact that it does work. So you want to try it. You want to see. So I'm that guy who like, okay, well, there's a big block coming here. Let's just put the stuff on and let's run it. Let's see what we get out of it. Let's see how it does for us, Yeah. And if, we can get something out of it, fine. It'll work, So.
Dom, you were going to ask a question, I think.
Yeah. I was just going to say, what meets do you have coming up this year? What do you got planned for 2019?
Well, I did the IPF meeting on the island of Nauru back in January. Next up would be the Master World Championship in Sweden in June. And then after that, I'll just sit back and wait for Raw Nationals to hit.
Gotcha.
So that'll be my 3 meets for the year. So, yeah, but the
Talk
one
about
for
a
the
trip out to Nauru, and that's that
was a nice trip. they really treated us well. Being from Hawaii, I think I had a foot up on everybody else, because of the weather. But even then, it was way hotter than Hawaii ever was. I mean, the humidity over there was just off the charts. So it made meet day really, really struggle. I mean, for everybody, it was just so hot. But again, it was a great meet. They really took care of everybody. It was a nice place to be. If you love being on the ocean, I think anybody that would visit that would really enjoy it,
That seems to be what I've heard from some other competitors there as well. That they had a really good experience and it seemed like they really went out of their way to take care of everybody.
Oh, they did. I mean, it was. I can say I've done a lot of world meets all over the world, and I say by far, that was probably the best in terms of really looking after the athletes and making sure it was about the athletes and not about anything else, Yeah.
Well, that actually brings up another thing I wanted to ask you about. Like, who would you say is the most impressive lifter that you've ever seen, as far as going to these meets and the competitions and everything over your career? What would you say, is there another lifter that stands out to you where you've been at a competition, just like, man, that guy, that girl, that's really something impressive to watch?
Man, there's a whole slew of names out there when you start to look at that, I mean, it's like... For
sure. I mean, there's dozens, right? But I didn't know if anybody stood out to you. And in particular, like, I mean, there's definitely people, anytime you're going to talk about, the GOAT or anything, there's kind of the standard names that always pop up, and that's cool. But I'm wondering if there's anybody that you kind of think of as being underrated.
Underrated. I wouldn't really say underrated. I mean, I always have to think about Dave Ricks. Just kind of knowing his background and when he started, coming in and taking over and not being a powerlifter and being a national champion at his, so that's kind of saying something. And then to be in the game as long as he has and still doing it at that level. And far as I know, Dave has never been hurt. So, I mean, that's saying something about, just being able to watch him, to actually work with him at the Grand Prix a couple of years. It's been great. So, I mean, he would be one of my favorites, just because of that. I mean, his numbers are not like super impressive, but he turned 60 years old this year, and to still be at that level, I mean, how many people in the game now can say that, especially like sort of a lot of the young kids, like by the time they hit their 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, who knows if they're even still going to be lifting or having interest in, let alone say, hey, I did it until I was 60 years old and I was still competitive with the open guys,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Dom, I think I got to ask about everything I wanted to ask. Anything you wanted to circle back on, man?
No, I mean, I think that was it. Just like always look up to Tony. Always got a smile on his face. And definitely always helpful at meets. And it's impressive to see him doing what he's doing. And like you said, at whatever age he's in, his mid-50s now or something. And it's look back at that meet history, and it's just been performing at a super high level for a really long time. And so just feel grateful to have some time to talk with him and hear his thoughts on things.
Yeah, man, likewise. And I think, one thing that I've kind of tried to emulate, I joke with you about the sandbagging at meets, the kind of attitude and stuff. But honestly, like I like I'm seriously though, like I like the the relaxed attitude. I like the, trying to keep things low stress. I think there's a lot to be learned from kind of adopting that kind of mindset. And I think that's something that, I don't live in Hawaii, so I can't do it like you do, but I can give it a shot, So I think there's a lot to be learned there. And yeah, man, like Dom said, I just really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. It's good to hear more about your history and what's going on to get you here, and what's gonna go on to get you to the next thing. There's more big plans in the works.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something, actually, it'll be coming. I'm actually recovering from a pinched nerve in my back in September. And we didn't actually find out about it until, I want to say, probably November time frame, because I had a switch in insurance company. So once my doctor submitted everything, we had to go back to them and get approval and whatnot. So it really was it was really an anchor in kind of at Raw Nationals. Hats off to Matt for everything he did. He did a great job. He came through. Nice performance. I love the way he squatted. But again, not being 100%, it shows that, hey, it's always the next time, So, we joked about it. I was like, well, there'll be another time. I said, hopefully you got your bench and then my squat will be, back to where it's supposed to be. So we're going to make it work out. I'm not gonna concede to you at all. But again, I like that camaraderie. I like to be able to have fun and, joke with the guys that are the champs, because, once you're up there on the top, you're always that target. And everybody's shooting at you to get knocked off there. But you got to be that champion that says, well, I'm going to kind of submit myself here, and you're going to have to knock me off. I'm not just going to fall off or jump down so you can get up here, Yeah. So, and, so right now I'm probably about 85% back to normal now. I lifted at the meet in Nauru with that pinched nerve, and I could tell just the way my lifts were going that it is definitely affecting everything, because it kind of shuts down that left hip, so there's no power. It's just like shut down the firing in it. So hopefully by Worlds it'll be ready to go. Continue to see the chiropractor and get the acupuncture stuff done. So it's been a really big help. So on top of that, I'll be ready. I plan on being ready for Raw Nationals, and I know Dennis will be back. So that's always a good way to get my total pushed in the right direction, Just get in there and pace the guy. So,
man, with Dennis, man, that's about what everybody's got to do. That guy is just ridiculously strong. But yeah, man, that's. I hope that all goes well for you, and I hope you keep chipping away at it. And like you said, if you're back in business by the time the World Championship comes around, that'd be awesome. It's always fun to watch you in top form, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, well, yeah,
have a good one.
Man,
thanks for taking some time.
Thank you, Jim.
Reactive Training Systems.